Have you ever stopped to think about why your phone was probably designed in California but built in China? Or how you can get coffee from Colombia right in your local grocery store? Well, it's all part of this huge, complicated global system. So let's spend the next few minutes breaking down this very big question. Why do countries trade?
All right, to get started, I want you to picture the entire global economy as one giant supermarket. Seriously, you've got some countries stocking the shelves with amazing electronics, others are bringing in coffee beans, and some are rolling in luxury cars. We all get to wander the aisles and pick what we need. But what's the real reason this supermarket even exists in the first place?
I mean, it's a totally fair question, right? It seems so much simpler to just be self-sufficient and make everything at home. But the truth is, that would be incredibly inefficient. And the reasons why, well, that's the whole point of international trade.
So let's get a basic definition on the table so we're all on the same page. At its very core, international trade is just the buying and selling of stuff, goods and services across national borders. It's really the backbone of our entire modern world. So why even bother? Well, it really boils down to a few key things. For one, sometimes it's just way cheaper to make things somewhere else. Other times, a country simply doesn't have the raw materials it needs, like oil or specific minerals. It's also about getting access to special skills. Think German engineering or Italian fashion. And at the end of the day, it gives all of us, the consumers, a much wider variety of stuff to choose from. But of course, it's not all sunshine and cheap t-shirts. This whole global system is very much a double-edged sword. Sure, it can create a ton of wealth and opportunity, but it also creates losers and comes with some pretty big risks. So let's take a look at both sides of that coin.
Okay, on the plus side, trade absolutely makes nations richer. It boosts the total amount of stuff the world produces, and it helps countries get things they don't have. It also lights a fire under domestic companies to get more competitive and efficient. And hey, it can even build some pretty important cultural and political bridges between countries.
But there's always a but, isn't there? A country could literally sell off its natural resources until they're all gone. And cheap imports? They can totally crush a brand new local industry before it even has a chance to get on its feet. Trade can also lead to job losses in certain sectors and create a really risky dependence on other countries for things we absolutely need.
This is such a perfect example. A Swiss watchmaker knows they can't possibly compete on price with a mass-produced watch from Asia. It's just not going to happen. So what do? They compete on quality, on tradition, and yeah, let's be honest, on what the source calls snob appeal. And this is exactly how specialized high-end industries survive. They export something unique that nobody else can easily copy.
So we get why countries trade, but how does it all actually work? Well, this is where things get really complicated. It turns out trading across borders is a whole lot harder than just selling something to your neighbor. Let's get into the weeds a little bit.
Think about it. Inside your own country, everyone uses the same money. People can move for a new job pretty easily, and everyone kind of wants the same things. But internationally? Whoa, you're juggling different currencies, different laws, completely different cultures, and people and money just can't move around as freely. These are massive hurdles to clear. And maybe the biggest complication of all is money itself. The real value of a product isn't some fixed number. It's constantly shifting based on how different currencies stack up against each other. And that balance can change everything in the blink of an eye, as you're about to see.
Okay, check this out, because this is where it gets really wild. This table shows how a simple change in the exchange rate can totally flip which country is the cheaper place to buy something. Just look at the row for factor R. When $1 buys 5 rupees, it costs 14 rupees in country B. That's cheaper than the 15 it costs in country A. But watch what happens when the dollar gets stronger. At $7.50 rupees, that same factor in country A now costs $22.50. Suddenly, country A is way more expensive. See? This is why governments and big companies are obsessed with exchange rates.
So with all these moving parts, what does it all really mean for us? For our countries, for our own well-being? Let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Growth, wealth, and, believe it or not, happiness.
I mean, the potential for growth here is just mind-boggling. Just look at India. As it opened its doors to more global trade and investment, its economy more than quadrupled in just 12 years. That is a seriously powerful case for what can happen when a country plugs into the global system. But here's a really fascinating idea. It's called the threshold hypothesis, and it basically argues that more economic growth isn't always better. The idea is that there's a certain point where the benefits start to level off,
And after that, more growth can actually start to make our quality of life worse.
And there actually seems to be a number attached to this. A lot of research suggests that, while yes, happiness does go up with income, it tends to hit a plateau once a country's GDP per person reaches around $15,000. After that point, more money doesn't really seem to buy more happiness.
And we absolutely have to talk about the environmental price tag. If you look back through history, you'll see a very tight connection. When the global economy grows, our carbon emissions grow right along with it. This creates one of the biggest challenges we face today. How do we get the prosperity we want without wrecking the planet?
This just goes to show how nuanced this whole thing is. Economists use these really complex graphs to figure out how growth actually affects a country. See, it's not as simple as growth is good. For instance, if a country gets better at making stuff it sells to the world, that's called export bias growth. But if its people just start buying more from other countries, that's import bias growth. Those two things have completely different impacts, which proves that just growing the economy isn't the full story.
Okay, so a system this complicated, this massive, with so many moving parts and potential winners and losers, you can't just let it run wild. You need rules, you need institutions, you basically need some referees on the field to manage the game.
And that's exactly where these global institutions come into play. To keep the gears of global trade turning, the world needs organizations that can help set common rules, step in to handle disputes, and generally provide a safety net to keep the whole system stable.
One of the biggest players on the field is the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. Its main jobs are to help keep exchange rates stable, give out emergency loans to countries that are in financial trouble, and generally keep money flowing. They even issue their own special reserve asset, sometimes called paper gold, to help things along. But the IMF is definitely not without its critics. A lot of the time, its help comes with some serious strings attached. It might require a country to privatize its industries or slash subsidies. And those conditions have faced a ton of criticism, with people arguing they can really hurt the most vulnerable people in developing countries. And all of this brings us to one final really important question. We've seen that global trade can be an incredible engine for making the world richer, but it clearly comes with real costs and creates inequalities. So whose job is it to manage all that? Who is ultimately responsible for making this whole game fair for everyone? That's definitely something to think